Welcome, Hollywood progressive friends and readers. The trio is back again after seeing a fine production of a play called If All the Sky Were Paper, which just completed its run at the Pasadena Playhouse. It was written by Andrew Carroll, directed by Jude Lucas, and produced by Nico Garcia Corona, and presented by the Royal Repertory Theater. And the basic story is after coming across a moving letter by a cousin who had written home from his experience as a pilot during World War II, the author of the play, Andrew Carroll, traveled to all 50 states and 30 countries around the world, collecting letters that military personnel had written home from every war, from the Civil War right up to the Afgan and Iraq conflagrations. So there were 11 actors who put on different hats and portrayed dozens of different letter writers. What do you think, Nia?
Yeah, so I want to jump in first out of the three of us. This play was sort of a weird hit and also sort of a miss for me personally. As my dad said, there were about 11 actors, and 10 of them were the ones who were actually portraying the different authors of these actual real life letters written during wartime to and from people, either people in the war writing to their loved ones or loved ones trying to write back to their friends, family members who were at war somewhere at some point. It struck me as similar to another play that we had seen called Fatherland. In Fatherland, the playwright took transcripts and social media posts and all sorts of other actual real life written copy in various places and put them in a particular order to create this very fascinating play that went over was about a January 6th insurrectionist and his son who actually reported him to the FBI and this, that, and the other. Very interesting story. This play that we saw was similar to that in that the playwright found all these different letters that sort of captured these individual moments during wartime. And I think the biggest takeaway that all three of us absolutely took away from the play is that war sucks. And the people who talk it up and want to go to war the most are oftentimes not the ones at all involved in war in any capacity. Or if they are, they perhaps are not found on the front lines due to their socioeconomic status or what have you. So the takeaway from all these letters was war is tragic and it sucks, and you find yourself in these difficult to put a simple word on it that doesn't fully do it justice, but these people, these very difficult situations, from being surrounded by Viet Cong for a week at a time, and being in the trenches and having to deal with the whatever shells casings going off all the time, and then having the brief moment at Christmas where German troops and US troops came to the no man's zone to celebrate humanity together.
Right.
And which makes me wonder other things along the lines of why then continue to fight the war. But I digress. It's a different conversation. I found myself a little so we like to see social justice related plays. This was absolutely a social justice related play about the truth of going to war and the ugliness that comes with it and the things that don't get talked about because the powers that be don't want us to talk about them, because then we wouldn't send our young men and women off to war. I felt that for people who already know this, it wasn't necessarily interesting to sit through. And I wasn't convinced that people who don't already know that would want to sit through and watch this play. I felt it was a little too long. It seemed to drag. And there wasn't the narrative, the flow of the story for me. It didn't really have one. It was sort of felt like I was being read like a thesis or like a dissertation on the true meaning of war. Interesting for some, but I think for people who need to hear this and need to be taught that war is not great, it not something that would have stuck with them. Absolutely more a note towards the playwright. Again, these actors just put their heart and soul into these shows, and it always shows through, even if the script itself has its qualm that we have our qualms with. These actors did a fantastic job. Like my dad said, 11 actors. One of them was just playing the main author who was collecting the letters, but the other 10 each played probably 5 or 6 different little mini roles, little vignettes, and you could not tell the difference between any of them. They were perfect little moments. I felt like they were actually that person for the 30-45 seconds that they were reciting their letter, and that was really, really powerful. I wish there were a couple, like I won't say too much. Well, I guess it's over, but there was one in particular, I believe he was a Jewish prisoner in a Holocaust camp, and him, and there were a couple of other characters that I wish I wanted to know more. I wanted to hear more of their letter. What more did they write? What sort of emotions were they going through? But yeah, really fun little theater. I hope we see more plays at this playhouse. It was a pretty cute little playhouse, very well put on for a relatively simple stage. I think this is probably one of the more simpler playhouses that we've seen. A big room with separated by a giant curtain, and they had a stage with some just simple set, but it was effective. The lighting was done really well. Yeah, that's what I have to say about it. I'm really curious, and I'm sure our viewers will be curious to hear about what my dad has to say about it. We're going to save him for last because he was a Vietnam War veteran and has more real life connection with the importance of writing letters and receiving letters when you're at war. Sharon, what did you think?
Well, oftentimes, Nia, you and I have a shared experience, but we didn't have a shared experience with this one. And I think it partly had to do with our difference in generation, our proximity to a person who did serve on the battlefield, who was actually wounded on the battlefield, and the kind of relationship that I have with this man and the kind of that you have. So there's stuff that I know about him that you may not know, and stuff that you know about him that I may not know. I'll say that the playwright, who is the founding director of the Center for American War Letters at Chapman University, and I'm reading this off this little sheet of paper that they gave us at the theater. He traveled all 50 states and more than 40 nations, including Iraq, Afghanistan, and Ukraine, to seek out these greatest war letters. And this is not the kind of experience that you celebrate. It's the kind of experience that it's a kind of play that I would say really immersed me into of experiencing what it is to receive a letter. Now, although I've been married to Dick for more than 20 years, I didn't know him when he was in Vietnam, so I didn't write him while he was in Vietnam.
And it's a good thing because you were 8 then.
I was probably 7.
Ew.
I was probably 7 and he wouldn't have appreciated my letters. But even though I was not a part of his life at that time, I am a part of his life now. And I know the lasting effects of having had that life-altering experience, an experience that is unique to him and is unique to every single person who experiences it, as well as to the people that love them. For the people who are fortunate enough and lucky enough to come home, they're lucky to come home, but they bring home with them a whole lot of stuff. And in the United States, it's been 100 years, 150 years since we've had war here. The American Civil War, we lost more soldiers than any other war ever. But in Europe and in Asia and somewhere on this globe, the United States has been involved with, either through proxy wars or through actually sending soldiers. We have been consistently involved in the military-industrial complex, using either our funds or our weaponry to provide support to help other countries kill, maim, and destroy other people's lives. I just read a quick factoid about Gaza. Gaza has the highest concentration of amputee children in the world, thanks to the good old United States. So when I was listening to these letters, even though the letters did not have any graphic content about, what they were experiencing, you could only imagine. I mean, even though, I say I've been married to your dad and I know more about his experience probably than you do, I don't know a whole lot of graphic stuff because they keep that all bottled up. But war is hell. And I appreciate the work that Andrew Carroll did in bringing this to the stage, because I often say Americans are over-entertained and under-informed. This is not an entertaining kind of experience, but it is an informing kind of experience, and I appreciate it, and I thought it was done very well.
So I was looking forward to it for the reasons these two have said, because I'm the one among the three of us who actually wrote letters home in a war zone and received letters. And I know what an impact letters had on some of my fellow soldiers who would line up when the company clerk came out with the mail call, and some guys would be just bereft if they didn't get a letter. I think I must have been more shut down emotionally. I was happy to get letters, but it didn't rock my world. But I did have that experience, and I was looking forward to it. I enjoyed the play, and I related to some of the letters, but I'll have to say it went on and on and on with one letter after another, and there wasn't really a thread binding them other than the fact that they were letters mostly from soldiers and airmen and so forth back home, and some letters the other way. I was so Nia reminded us of Fatherland, which is a superb play, has been extended and extended at the Fountain Theater, and I think it's still running and much to be seen, even though it was based on real life words that somebody had written or said. It wasn't about a war, well, unless you count the assault on the capital of war. But that was terribly moving. And then I thought another terribly moving play was like before our time, when we were taking Nia to plays 13 years ago. We saw a play called Tracers, written by John DeFusco, put on at the theater in Culver City, thanks to our friend Keith Jeffries and his USVAA, United States Veterans Artists Alliance. And what that play did, and now that was not taken from real life written words of anybody, it was made up in the playwright's head, but it took a group of 8 Marines from basic training, from civilians and going into basic training, through their various not very happy experiences in Vietnam, their various experiences, and then what happened to them years later, dying of cancer from Agent Orange, coming out of prison, seeking refuge in a monastery in Thailand. And because it was about the Vietnam War, I don't know, I remember, I think I must have cried in that one. I mean,
you did, and you had a bad dream that night.
Yeah, it was that one touched me in a way that If All the Sky Were Paper didn't. I didn't leave particularly touched. I mean, I know it's an anti-war film or anti-war play. I appreciate the effort, and I thought it was, and maybe it was more of a book than a play. I could see sitting down and reading a lot of different letters, but being portrayed there, and I guess I thought the actors were good. Some were hard to understand. One in particular, he seemed to play the Vietnam guy, the big guy with the shaved head, and I related to him. I thought it was good. It was well worth the time, and Nia's right that Pasadena Playhouse is a really convenient theater, lots of parking, and nice theater. It was a lot of fun. I would
Yeah.
say.
I'd say the one line that really stuck with me was when he mentioned that he had collected thousands and thousands of letters, and after reading through all of them, he didn't find a single one that glorified war. And when we think about our politicians and the condition of this country in terms of people's lack of engagement, there are people that have the authority and the power to declare war, and they do it all the time. And we just need to stop them from doing that.
Yeah, well, there's money to be made, there's careers to be made, there's offices to be elected to.
Yeah.
I think you're wrong. I have told you, I've related some of the most difficult experiences I had in Vietnam. It's true. When I came back home, I was sort of shut down emotionally. I did keep it inside for a long time, with the help of a bottle of whiskey now and then. But since I don't do that anymore, I've told you some pretty jarring things, the things that I saw. That
you have told me a couple, but there's some things that you didn't tell me, like for years. Like when you were injured, the shrapnel was in your leg and you're on the battlefield, you never told me that you had to be fighting when the helicopter came to pick you up, and they couldn't get you because the enemy was firing at the helicopter, and they just left you there injured, one leg, and you couldn't do anything. I thought
I could do anything. My leg was broken, but I was getting around.
Where were you
I was
going?
Getting behind a paddy dike so I wouldn't get shot.
With people shooting at you.
Yes, indeed. I was calling around and firing back.
Do you see what I'm dealing with here? He's getting around. He has a leg with shrapnel in it.
Look, I was fine. It was fine.
But my point is,
I knew they were coming back. It was fine.
it's true. A lot of veterans keep it inside. And what I came to understand when I ran a halfway house for alcoholics and tried to deal with some fellow alcoholic veterans, that some couldn't come forward with their secrets.
Yes.
And some of their secrets were probably pretty grisly.
Yeah, I know.
In case that mine weren't.
Yeah.
And I saw them drink themselves to death as a result.
Yeah, I mean, I think that more than anything, what I saw in you is you saw some people who had much worse experiences than you had, especially your buddy. And so because yours wasn't as bad as theirs, you choose not to, you act as if yours was nothing. I mean, I understand that experience. When I was going through the experience of losing one of the closest people in my life to AIDS, and I went to a support group to share, to try to lessen my burden. And then it came to me that everybody in the support group was HIV positive except for me. It made me feel like shutting up. It's like, Sharon, what the hell are you complaining about? But I still did have pain. And there are times when you need to share that.
But the key thing here, I think one of you said, that the people that ought to be touched by these letters, that ought to see them, are like the decision makers and the rah-rah folks who are all in favor of work, and they'll never see it. So I
don't even know if the decision makers even have a heart anymore.
I was gonna say, even if they did see it, I'm not sure it would go much further than a millimeter skin deep, but I don't think it would hit them.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's just heartbreaking. You could probably find every original paper that each letter was written on and put it in a pile in front of them, and there still wouldn't be a reaction.
Yeah, I think they've developed callous. Over the years, I think they've seen a lot, and they figure, well, people are going to die anyway.
Well,
I find a way to make my own money.
I admired them for the effort of putting on this play. It was well worth our time.
Yeah, me too.
See you next time. We're going to line up some more plays to see.
And hopefully
bye, folks.
We'll be a little cheerier the next time.
No, we don't like cheer.
Maybe. We'll see.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for sticking around. If you like the LA Progressive content and the discussions we have here, please consider clicking the subscribe button below and also give us a thumbs up. That helps to grow our audience by feeding the algorithm, which helps to get this content in front of more eyes. Thanks for stopping by. We really appreciate your support.